from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the, I don't know what night it is anymore, Tuesday night edition of the program. Our telephone number, if you want to join the show, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And we've got a stacked show for you tonight, so definitely stay tuned in for all 3 hours. And join us for the third hour in Open Phone America. But I want to start off with some of the crazy that's been going on. There's a lot of crazy, right? That's what we do here. We analyze the crazy. And part of the crazy starts with Joe Biden. Joe Biden, and, you know, some people think, oh, it's unfair to beat the guy up. Talk about, you know, solutions rather than criticism. Okay. I'll give you a solution. Get rid of Joe Biden and things will be better. How do I know? Well, just look at everything, right? Joe Biden is, again, saying that when he took office, inflation was at 9%. But the reality is that's not true, right? It's just simply not true. And I'm almost starting to think maybe Joe Biden is so, like, off, or he's got such bad advisors that perhaps, you know, he walks in and he's like, oh, all right, I'm president now, transition team. What do we do? What's the first order of business? And, you know, and they tell him things like, you know, when inflation goes up, maybe they come and they lie to him. They just say, hey, sir, you know, inflation's hovering around 9%. And, you know, we're going to have to work on that. And he said, oh, that Trump, right? And he's already coming in thinking that I can't think of another scenario other than he's just a lying dog-faced pony soldier, right? Joe El Baboso Biden, the lying dog-faced pony soldier. Maybe that is what is really happening, but I really feel like he believes himself. And maybe that's what makes him a good retail politician, is that he can, you know, say what he's got to say and it's believable. But I don't believe him, but I believe he believes himself. And that's part of what I find very interesting about Joe El Baboso Biden. And a couple of other interesting tidbits here. We're going to talk about the latest in Israel with the war in Gaza. I also want to talk about the latest with the Trump trial and everything that's going on there. Of course, Biden. And tomorrow I think we get the CPI number, which I'm looking forward to hearing because I want it to go down. You know, as much as I beat up Joe El Baboso Biden, I'm rooting for Biden. He's literally the president of my country, and I want him to succeed because if he succeeds, America succeeds. Do I want him to succeed in the election? No, because he had his chance. I think everybody gave him a chance. He didn't do well, right? We're sitting here talking about how he doesn't know what the inflation is, and he lies all the time. So, granted, I don't think that's going to go well for him come Election Day. And if it does, boy, do we have a problem. But just a tidbit to what's going on with the Trump trial, because yesterday Trump made a statement and he said, you can't get within a couple of blocks of here, blah, blah, blah. You know, it was really interesting. Well, today he had a cadre of people that were out there in support. We're talking about the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. One of my faves, Congressman Byron Donalds was out there. Congressman Corey Mills, Vivek Ramaswamy, and others that were on deck. Governor Doug Burgum, right? Looks like he's putting together a little bit of a fantasy football cabinet there. And they were there in support, did a press conference, gave some statements, and we've got a clip of Speaker Mike Johnson, who was in New York City today outside the courthouse. Listen to this.
The crime that they are accusing President Trump of is falsification of business records. But I think everybody knows he is not the bookkeeper for his company. President Trump is innocent of these charges. And again, anyone with common sense can understand what is happening here. In the midst of all this nonsense and corruption, they have placed a ridiculous and unprecedented gag order on President Trump. They were overriding his constitutional right to defend himself from political smears from his harshest critics at the most important time. He is soon to be officially the nominee of one of the major parties in our country, running for president. And they have him tied up here in this ridiculous prosecution that is not about justice. It's all about politics, and everybody can see that.
It is all about politics, and everybody can see it. And what's interesting is there's an article today saying that the other trial that he just went through with Judge Engeron, never knew how to say that right, he's now under investigation for receiving unsolicited advice about the Trump trial. Listen to this. This is Judge Engeron. He ordered former President Trump back in March to pay $454 million. And that became a big thing, and they had to lower that. Now it's a whole different story, right? He still has to pay. I mean, he had to pay $175 million in a bond and whatever. But this judge is being reported by the UK Daily Mail to be under investigation. And this is an interesting development because I think people see what's going on. And again, this is being reported by the UK Daily Mail that the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct is reportedly looking into whether he violated any rules. And that's according to an additional report from NBC New York. So we'll find out what's going on. But the ruling is that Judge Engeron may have overstepped his bounds. Obviously, for any of us that were watching, he clearly did from the very beginning. I'm just grateful that they're looking into it. Now, it's New York, so what can we expect from New York, right? Really, what can we expect? We probably expect them to go, yep, we looked, we didn't see anything. Take care, brush your hair. Thank you. We're good. I'm pretty sure they're not going to find anything because that's how they roll. But at least, there's a semblance of trying. And you never know. Maybe you find enough people to do the right thing. As of late, it seems to me that there's a lot of people, former Democrats, that are saying, enough's enough. We're not doing this anymore. We're tired of this. And not because they're pro-Trump, because they're pro-doing the right thing. And they're realizing this thing is a sham. It's a witch hunt. It's what should never be done to anybody, including people that you don't like Donald Trump. And if you're like me that you like Donald Trump, that's fine. But we have to get a grip. We have to get a grip on how we handle things in our country, and we've gone so far away from things. Today, believe it or not, I had a conversation with a 7-year-old, and all she knew, just from watching the news and not even her family life, because I actually know this child, really from like school and I guess whatever, maybe she observes outside of school. She said, he was arrested, Trump. And I thought, yeah, but they're trying to figure out if he's guilty or not. And she's like, I'm pretty sure he did something wrong if he was arrested. And talking to kids can be so eye-opening because that's logical, right? To most people, if they arrested him, he had to do something wrong. And you're already behind the 8 ball once you've been arrested. And Trump's having his day in court, and they keep trying to make it look like he's guilty of absolutely everything under the sun. So we'll continue our conversation on what's going on with the trial. I'll give you some updates on that. We'll get some analysis on that as well, probably at the top of the next hour. And straight ahead, I want to jump into a little bit of what is happening in Gaza. The Israeli war cabinet seems to have given the green light to go into Rafah and finalize their plan to eradicate Hamas. So we're gonna get into that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. I'm here with you till 1 a.m. Eastern Time, and I'm very happy to bring you our guest, Brigitte Gabriel. She's a national security analyst. She's a New York Times best-selling author and the chairman of actforamerica.org. Brigitte Gabriel, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Rich. I'm delighted to be back with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, Brigitte, I have a clip of audio that I want you to hear, and it's a little bit long, but there's full context there. And I think if you haven't heard it already, you're going to be blown away. It's stuff that you and I think both know, but we haven't seen it on primetime television. And the son of the co-founder of Hamas, Mossab Hassan Youssef, was on with Dr. Phil, who's a guest on this program as well. And the things that he said to two women, Zainab and Salma, who were there in defense of Palestine, was remarkable. Listen to this, Brigitte.
The charter of Hamas is to eliminate the Jewish race, beginning with Israel, but not stopping with Israel, wiping them off the face of the earth. Is that true?
This is true, but it does not end there. Now we have the problem with the pro-Palestine, who are actually giving Hamas cover. They are participants in the crime. In fact, since October 7, I personally don't differentiate between Hamas and what's so-called Palestinians. Because actually there is no Palestinians. There are tribes. There is a tribe of Hamas, and there is a tribe of the Islamic Jihad, and there is a tribe of Khalil, and there is a tribe of Nablus. And each one has different interests, and all of them are conflicted. If they did not have Israel as the common enemy, they would kill each other. This is the reality of what's so-called Palestine.
Rhetoric?
You don't know what Palestine is. Actually, in fact, the keffiyeh that you are wearing, this is just a statement to show that you really lack the authenticity to represent the case. And what's so-called the cause, you know, this is a human problem.
So you just...
The cause must die. I think enough is enough. And now it's proven, and you are helping Hamas to prove it to the world, that Palestine depends on the destruction of the state of Israel. And this is not acceptable, and we are not going to agree to it. And I tell you something, for the next 10 or 20 years, the Palestinian people will pay the bill that Hamas is caused today, and most likely in blood.
To you, Hamas and Palestinians are the same. They're one and the same.
After October 7, yes, there is no difference.
Really?
The vast majority of the Palestinian people support Hamas.
Really?
This is a fact. This is proven by statistics, and your silence now. You cannot even condemn Hamas and say that what they did on October 7 was an act of a savage group. You don't have that power.
Said I condemn.
On what authority do you speak? You only speak on the authority of Hamas propaganda.
No, why do you say that I'm speaking on the authority of Hamas propaganda?
Because if you were a decent human being, you can say that the thousands were killed on October 7. That was a crime against humanity. It was a genocide.
This was a very powerful exchange, Brigitte, between Mossab Hassan Youssef, the son of one of the co-founders of Hamas, on the Dr. Phil program, with two pro-Palestinian representatives on this panel. And I was moved by it because I thought, man, I had not seen someone that close to home, per se, making this case. Brigitte Gabriel, what's your reaction?
Well, he is speaking the truth, and anybody who comes from the Middle East understands that in the Middle East, loyalty is to the tribe. There is no such thing as a country. You know, we in the West think of countries as countries. Like when you think of Libya, people, when we were dealing with Gaddafi, people thought Libya is a nation and Gaddafi was its leader. Libya is three tribes concentrated in three cities, and Gaddafi basically had his thumb put on them. Once Gaddafi was removed, the three of them are fighting with each other. other. In my book, Because They Hate, my first New York Times bestseller, in my chapter about the Middle East, I say when you look at the Middle East, you look at tribes with flags. You're not looking at countries, because people's loyalty is to their tribe. It's not to the country. And so when you look at the Palestinians and their affiliation with Hamas right now, and actually ever since Hamas came to power in 2005, when Israel left Gaza, handed it to the Palestinians, they practically had their own so-called state in Gaza, where they held their own elections. Israel not only withdrew out of Gaza, but Israel dug out the bones in the cemeteries of the dead Israeli Jews that were buried there and moved them out, because they wanted to make sure they knew what Hamas or what the Israelis are going to do, what the Palestinians were going to do to the dead bodies. So Israel removed anything Jewish alive or dead out of Gaza in 2005, and they handed it to the Palestinians. So what did the Palestinians do? They had their first election. The first woman who won as a minister and was appointed to the cabinet became known as Nidal, the mother of the Mukawama. And her platform, she ran and she won because her campaign commercials were a video of her dressing her sons in suicide belts. She sent 3 of her sons to blow themselves up to smithereen and die in order to kill Jews. And then she held like a wedding celebration the day after they blew themselves up to celebrate their death. And when she ran, her commercial said, I already gave 3, I have another 7 to give, another 7 children to send to die in the cause. That's why the Palestinians elected her. Now, that was through their democratic election. So I know people in the West like to differentiate between Hamas and the Palestinians. Oh, they're not the same. They're very different. Who do you think Hamas is? It's like the breeze who flew into Gaza. Hamas is made up by the Palestinians. It's the Palestinians' families, the Palestinian children, and they all line up behind Hamas to kill Jews.
Wow. Brigitte Gabriel, I always appreciate your views on this stuff. I know you're always here to speak the truth. And I feel like this is something that when it comes from someone like yourself, from Lebanon, someone like this gentleman that I think can speak to this credibly, it's just quite eye-opening, because when you hear this type of thing, oftentimes you hear it from people that are not, that don't, I guess, that lack the credibility. And why do you think this message gets drowned out? Why we don't hear more of what you're talking about?
Look, Americans have very little knowledge about the rest of the world. They have very little knowledge about the culture of other countries in the world. While the rest of the world is exposed to American society, American culture, American traditions through entertainment, the movies, the TV series. I mean, I grew up in a bomb shelter in Lebanon watching Dallas and The Love Boat and Dynasty and Peyton Place and Little House on the Prairie. I mean, I learned to speak English, Rich, sitting in a bomb shelter that operated on a car battery, writing subtitles on my arm. That's how I learned English. I never went to school to learn English. I was so determined to come to America that I learned English watching television. So the rest of the world is exposed to American culture, but Americans in general do not know much about the rest of the world. Actually, do you know that only 15% of Americans have passports? And that's why Americans are very misled about foreign cultures, and they reflect their values on evil people.
Ooh, Brigitte Gabriel, stay right there. We're going to come right back with Brigitte Gabriel. She is the author of many books, best-selling author, and chairman of Act for America, actforamerica.org. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back to continue this conversation, as well as get her take on 2024, Biden, and so much more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Brigitte Gabriel. And Brigitte Gabriel, before the break, you were explaining how only 15% of Americans have passports. And I happen to have one. And I was just in Budapest, Hungary. And I can tell you, I was thinking the same thing to myself. I was like, I speak Spanish and Portuguese and studied a little French, but I don't know I couldn't understand anything in Hungarian. I really couldn't. But for all the English signs and every taxi driver speaking some English, and most places they spoke some sort of English. That's the only way I survived. And it really was just a really interesting point that you made, that everybody knows about America, but not all of America knows about everybody else.
Exactly. America is a big nation, and I think this is actually one of our weaknesses. I think they should teach the rest about the rest of the world, even just a little course. I know America is a big continent, and we have everything in here. We are one contained unit. We have everything, but it has become a part of our downfall, because right now our young generation that you would think is exposed to foreign cultures and foreign nations. I guess, Rich, here's the irony. We are watching our universities right now, and we are watching our universities become a bedrock of riots and violence and demonstration and rebellion against everything that is America. And the reason is because we are seeing all this multiculturalism on college campuses. Well, the reason that started was after World War II, the United States government introduced the Title VI program, because they wanted to put a way where we can put money into our universities to set up Middle East study departments, etc., so students can learn about foreign cultures and foreign languages, so in case those who want to get into the diplomatic field, working for the CIA, working for the State Department, they can know something about the rest of the world. What happened after the oil in the Middle East was discovered is all these Arab nations started funneling millions of dollars into our universities using the Title VI program in order to set up Middle East study departments and political science departments and appoint Arab professors who are anti-America and anti-Israel to teach our children that Israel is evil, America is bad, and the Islamic world, the Arabic world, is oppressed. So right now we are seeing the results of a program that our government put in college to make American children better informed about the rest of the world, that backfired and was used by people who wish America ill, basically to reprogram our children and brainwash them. So now our children think they understand about the rest of the world, while they have been fed nothing but a diet of hate and resentment and propaganda against our own country. And it's a crying shame. That's the biggest mistake that we have allowed to happen. We're allowing our universities to accept foreign dollars to brainwash our children.
It's kind of like Abraham Lincoln said, America will only be undone from within. And that's literally the best way to do it, is the way that you're describing. Brigitte Gabriel, chairman of Act for America. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go right ahead.
No, I just wanted to share that, I detail all that in my first book, Because They Hate, where I have a whole chapter about the fifth column on our college campuses. But this is something that my organization now is working on heavily. My organization, actforamerica.org. And I encourage people to go to the website. We are working with members of Congress right now on introducing legislation that will revoke the visas and expel any foreign student who is participating in these riots in our country, inciting violence, screaming death to the Jews. We do not need this foreign element to sow hatred and resentment in our own country. So right now we're working with Congress on a bill that will be introduced that will strip and deport foreign students who have been participating in these rallies. We are also working on another bill that will stop the student loans, that will revoke the student loans from American students who have been participating in these rallies, committing violence. It's okay to demonstrate. It's okay to express your opinion. This is what America is about. But it's not okay to incite violence and call for the eradication of a whole race of people by calling for their deaths, calling for the gas chambers. That is unacceptable. So I urge people listening to this broadcast, if my message resonates with you, please go go to actforamerica.org, actforamerica.org, and take action on many our Act Now campaigns that are on the website regarding these issues. Your voice is needed. Your members of Congress need to hear from you. We make it very easy for you. It doesn't cost you a dime to take action. Sign up to get our emails and action alerts. We monitor bills coming down for a vote at the federal level as well at the state level. And I know we have a lot of people listening to us right now from all over the country. Sign up to get our action alerts regarding bills. We need you informed and we need you engaged. It doesn't cost you anything. We want everybody voicing their concern and making an impact to save our nation.
Folks, I recommend following these action alerts. Actually, I saw one which was about the World Health Organization treaty, and it was very moving. I said, we got to get Brigitte back on the show because I remembered when this came out a couple of months ago, but didn't realize that it's up again for consideration. And Brigitte, before we wrap up, take a couple of minutes and tell us what's going on with this World Health Organization medical treaty.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up. That is such an important discussion right now because while most Americans are distracted with what's happening on college campus, Biden is about to sign our medical sovereignty to the World Health Organization and the UN. And the deadline is May 27th. And actually, while it was a treaty, now they're making it an agreement because under a treaty, they will have to run it by the Senate, and the Senate has to approve it. So by changing it into an agreement, and I just learned that from my contacts who are inside Geneva and the World Health Organization, that what they're doing is changing it into an agreement, because if it's an agreement, the President of the United States can sign that agreement without having to go through the Senate to get a vote by the Senate. We, the American people, do not want any foreign agency or government having control over our health. The details are on our website. When you go to actforamerica.org, it's on the front page. Defund and exit the World Health Organization. We tell you about the bill. We tell you what's coming down. You click on Take Action Now. You enter your information, and we connect you directly with your members of Congress and your senators. So you can send them an email, which is already pre-prepared for you. You can read it. You can approve it. With one click of a button, it can go to them. We give you their phone number so you can call them. We give you a Facebook post, Twitter post that are already prepared for you by our graphic department that you can share on your social media. We have until May 27th, which is just a couple of weeks, to stop this. Your senators need to hear from you, and your leaders need to hear from you. Please go to actforamerica.org right now and click on Defund and Exit the World Health Organization and take action.
Amen to that. Now, Brigitte Gabriel, let everybody know how they could follow you on social media so they can stay in touch with everything you're doing.
Oh, my goodness. We are on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok, as much as I hate TikTok. But it's a necessary evil. On the website, actforamerica.org, you go to the bottom and you'll have the link to all our social media where you can follow us and get the latest updates on any bills coming down for a vote. And important information because, Rich, just like what we discussed, the World Health Organization, thank you for bringing that up. Most Americans have no idea. It's not even being talked about on national media other than shows like your show. So thank you for bringing it out. And this is the type of stuff that we notify people about, that under the Biden administration, they're trying to sneak in all these bills and all these issues, hoping and banking that the American public is not paying attention. But we are watching them. We are paying attention, and we are alerting you. And I thank you, Rich, for inviting me on your show and helping your audience to be informed and to be engaged and give them the tools to make their voice heard and take action. Very few people are doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Brigitte. It's actually my pleasure. I know that you know what's going on. You've got your finger on the pulse, and that's important. And one quick question for you. Trump is gearing up to, I mean, every day he's leading in the polls. Things look really good as far as the polls go. But who do you think he picks for vice president?
Oh, boy. Well, you know, Trump, I can tell you it's not going to be Nikki Haley. That we know. Thank God. Let me just wipe my forehead. We can rejoice. Trump is a very wise president. He has been betrayed enough by people and stabbed in the back, as we are seeing. No wonder why he can't trust anybody. So whoever President Trump will pick to be his vice president will be the perfect choice. We do not know that. He may pick somebody that's not even on the radar. This is the way he operates. I mean, look, remember when he picked Mike Pence? Nobody even thought of Mike Pence.
Exactly. Yeah, excellent answer. Thank you, Brigitte. I have to take a pause here, but I always appreciate you being here and hope to speak with you again very soon.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Folks, we're coming right back with your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And the infamous actor Robert De Niro, who, again, I like Robert De Niro. I'm not boycotting him. I've been blessed with this unique ability to go, wow, that guy's politics suck. He's terrible, but man, is he funny and a good actor. And I just don't hold it against him. And I hope people don't do that to me either. I just think De Niro's funny. And I've enjoyed so many De Niro films. But De Niro was on The View today whining about people not taking Trump seriously because he's a real threat to the nation. And comparing him to Hitler and Mussolini. And it was just really, really interesting. Listen to Robert De Niro.
I don't understand why people are not taking him seriously because you read about it historically in other countries that they didn't take the people seriously. I think Hitler, Mussolini, but they're fools and clowns. Well, and I hear it, there's some people, I mean, who does not think that this guy is going to do exactly what he says he's going to do?
Right.
He's done it already. And then what? We're going to sit around and say, what? We told you so? Or whoever, I told you so? It's going to happen. If he gets elected, it's going to change this country for everybody. And they might think that it's going to make their life better, or they just want to, excuse my French, literally. Those people who support him with anger and hate, because that's what he's about, they're going to see. I mean, I used to see these things. I didn't understand how he and Rosie O'Donnell used to get it. I didn't really care. Yeah. I see what a hateful, mean-spirited, awful thing he is.
He was vicious to her.
He's vicious. And why will he not do that in this country? He's already done it. Yeah. Why would he not do? When I say I want to punch him in the face, it's because what he said to a person, a bystander or somebody in one of his rallies, he wants to punch him in the face. You don't talk that way to people. What kind of person does that?
So this is just so rich, right? Really, really so rich here. De Niro says, I want to punch Trump in the face because Trump said, and I know exactly what he's talking about. It was 2015 or so, maybe it was 2016, at a rally. Somebody got, out of line, started heckling Trump, and he said, I remember a time when people who did that would get punched in the face. That's what Trump said. De Niro, by contrast, said, I want to punch Trump in the face, or I'd love to punch him in the face, or if he were here, I'd punch him in the face. Where it was very active De Niro punching Trump in the face. Now, for the record, I have yet to hear Donald Trump ever say that he would punch De Niro in the face. So De Niro's criticism of Trump here is just hysterical because he's saying, what kind of person does that? You, sir, you are the kind of person that does that. Trump has not done that. And this is just another example of how people, listen to the media, whether you're 7 years old, whether you're 70 years old. If you're only getting half the story, you're not fully informed. Now, when you're 7, that's all right. You're 7. Hopefully you'll get the rest of the story and you'll be better informed. What 7-year-old really follows the news? Nobody's expecting a 7-year-old to be on top of things. Shoot, most of us don't expect people that are in their 50s and 60s to get it right. That's why a lot of people tune into programs like this. We have a wonderful audience, very mixed audience, by the way, probably one of the most mixed in radio because we're on at late night. And there's a lot of people who don't like me, and you know that because they call here and I talk to them all the time, and they disagree with me. Some of them like me and disagree with me. Some of them can't stand me and disagree with me. Just read the comments on some of my social media. You'll see. It's very clear. But we talk to them, right? It's not a one-sided audience. It's a real national conversation that we're trying to have. But it seems like Robert De Niro's not trying to have any conversation. He's focused on punching Trump in the face. Meanwhile, Trump is trying to stay out of prison and make America great again. You tell me who's the better of these two men. More when I return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
We have to know that sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open. Sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that door down. Excuse my language.
That is Vice President Vice President Kamala Harris speaking and making use of profanity. And again, this is typical, I think, for politicians on both sides of the aisle. It's not that uncommon. I think it's an attempt to normalize things. But let's get your thoughts on that. Let's go to Bill, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Go right ahead, Bill.
Hi, Rich. That's exactly why I was calling you.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts are, what door was she talking about? Was she talking about the door at the border that no longer exists? Rich, I don't want to touch her. But she was given the job 3 years ago, right? She was top security to watch that door, but she was insubordinate to her boss, who, is an ass, is an idiot. But, when you're insubordinate to a boss, which she was, she never went down to that border. Like I said, even though your boss is a yo-yo, that's grounds to be fired.
Yeah, listen, Bill, I don't know that he gave her a directive to go to the border. I know that he said, she was going to kind of, take the lead on what's going on. I think we all assumed she was going to go to the border. It makes sense that she'd go there and give a speech. Instead, she got on a plane and went to, I think, Honduras, right, at the time. And she said, don't come. And that was clearly not effective. All I could say is I think politicians on both sides of the aisle will make use of profanity here and there to normalize themselves, because people oftentimes think, you know what, I'm not some prim and proper squeaky clean suit like these guys on TV or these guys in Congress. I think that's much of the appeal that Trump has, where he might be wearing a squeaky clean suit, but we all know Trump is he's rough around the edges and he does his thing. And I think it's that appeal that gets to people. Now, had Kamala not given the cackle at the end, I think she might have been more effective at actually connecting with people. But it was probably a win for her, honestly. With that crowd, they were probably like, man, I love that lady. She's so down to earth. She even curses like I do. And I think that was the whole goal. Bill in Pittsburgh, KDK, thanks for the call. Folks, we're coming right back. More to come straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of the program. It is Tuesday night. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And, of course, the Trump trial continues. Lots going on there. We're going to jump into that in just a moment. Biden's making all sorts of odd claims on electric cars. The migrants that were caught on video beating up the New York City Police Department cops in that video that became famous a couple of months ago, and then one of them was rearrested. Well, guess what? These guys were let off pretty easy, and I'll get to that a little bit, maybe in open phones across America. But I want to swing back over to the Trump story. President Trump was outside of the courtroom today, and he, like always, has a lot to say. He's been beating the drum, and I think rightfully so, on how much of a fake, phony fraud case this whole trial is. And I want you to hear what Trump had to say regarding the gag order. Listen to this.
The gag order has to come off. So when you ask me a question about the people that we're talking about, I'm not allowed to answer. There's never been anything like this in the history of our country. It's a scam. It's election interference at a level that's never taken place before. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go into the icebox and sit for a long time.
That, again, El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, outside the courtroom, where, again, outside of the courthouse, you had Speaker Mike Johnson, you had Congressman Byron Donalds, you had Congressman Corey Mills, Governor Doug Burgum, and Vivek Ramaswamy were just some of the ones that I saw that were out there in support of President Trump, having a press conference right outside. So a very interesting set of events that's out there. The testimony of Michael Cohen does not seem to be going well. I want to talk about this with our guest. He's fresh off of the Fox News channel. He was just on there. You probably just saw him and his beautiful head of hair on the television. I want to welcome Professor Nick Giordano. Professor Nick, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Rich, and let the audience know that we see the same barber.
Yes, we go to the same barber. And, of course, Nick Giordano is professor of political science at Suffolk County Community College. He's the host of the PAS Report podcast, and he is the Campus Reform Higher Education Fellow, and he always brings us up to speed on that stuff. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So, Nick, did you get a chance to see what went on in the court today? Are you up to speed with what's going on with Michael Cohen?
I certainly am. I mean, this trial, here's the thing. If you're going to bring charges against the former president, especially one that's running for the president again, you better have overwhelming, undisputable evidence. And it better be clear, it better be convincing, and the people that are bringing the case against you, along with their witnesses, better be of impeccable integrity and the utmost character. Here we get the exact opposite. I'm starting to think District Attorney Alvin Bragg is actually a closet MAGA supporter, because to bring this case, there's nothing here. I mean, you heard the defense now started to do the cross-examination of Michael Cohen, and they basically savaged him, his integrity. He didn't have any integrity, but basically questioning his motives and how much he despises the former president. When he was asked, he said that he recalled all these events from years ago, but he can't recall all the times he met with the district attorneys and prosecutors and his lawyers. And so they're trying to destroy his credibility, and they're doing a good job of it because he doesn't have much credibility. This is a case that never should have been brought.
You say that Michael Cohen was on the stand and under cross-examination, he's not doing well. But I have it on good authority that the man that brought the impeachment against Donald Trump, Representative Dan Goldman, who was working hand in glove with Adam Schiff for Brains, he actually trained and coached Mr. Cohen for this cross-examination. I don't know how he could have been bad. Listen to this, Nick.
I would echo what Claire said, and I have deposed Michael Cohen. I have met with him a number of times to prepare him. This was different testimony than what his demeanor was during the AG's case.
This is, again, Congressman Dan Goldman, who clearly said that he met with him to prepare him, and doesn't seem like it's going well.
Well, two things on that. First of all, when you have someone like Michael Cohen, see, the problem with Cohen is that he actually thinks he's smart, but he's not really smart. And his ego is his own destruction. As far as Congressman Dan Goldman, it's extremely unusual that a member of Congress would coach someone to take down a former president and a currently running president. I think that there are some concerns there, and I think it's something that the House should actually look at, because did Dan Goldman does he know all the ins and outs of the case? Has he spoken to the White House? I mean, these are answers that we need to get. Is there collusion between the Democrat Party itself and the district attorney's office? And if that's the case, well, that raises an enormous amount of red flags. And when we do talk about election interference, this should concern every single American, because you are witnessing a weaponized judiciary and the levers of power is being used to take down one person simply because they despise him. And it could easily happen to anyone, whether they're Democrat or Republican. So we need to get this House in order. And I think that there is a potential, and only Democrats could do this. I thought maybe Trump's best hope in New York and Manhattan was a hung jury. But I'm starting to think, even with a Democrat jury, you may get a not guilty verdict, because we haven't heard an ounce of evidence that a crime was actually committed here.
Folks, we're on with Professor Nick Giordano, Professor of Political Science at Suffolk County Community College. He's the host of the PAS Report podcast, and he's the Higher Education Fellow over at Campus Reform. And Professor Nick Giordano, I think you're right. Everything seems to be, there's photos from the courtroom where you see Trump with a smile on his face. And usually he's got a scowl because he doesn't like what's going on. But it seems like he's hearing this testimony, if I had to guess, and he's thinking, oh, man, these guys, they're dumber than rocks, and he's just, I think, basking in his glory that, we're going to make this, we're going to make it through on this. And I think you're right. Everything seems very, very badly. Earlier today, I saw some analysis from somebody I like to call the great one, Mark Levin. Former chief of staff at the United States Department of Justice, talk show Hall of Famer. And he was making the case that the mistakes that Bragg is making are really going to eventually hurt the other cases that are pending, which have been put on pause kind of indefinitely, because the presidential immunity case might be impacted by some of what's happening here. And it all, to me, rings that this might be the last hurrah, right? I think this might be the last case that can be brought for a trial before the election, and it's not even going that well. What say you?
Well, I think he's spot on. I think that this does taint all the other cases, and it's the first one brought. It's clear why there were Democrats that were against this case coming forward. It's clear why lawyers that usually side with the left said that this is a terrible case. Now we're witnessing in real time why they felt that way. And understand, it taints the entire system. So there's been enormous damage that's been done to the United States based on this case and the three other cases. And this is why it's so much, it's beyond politics. It's about America, the United States, and our system of justice. We have the best system of justice in the world. It's not perfect, but it's better than anywhere else. And when you use it to target political opposition, well, that is reminiscent of third world countries. And I would love to get Mark Levin's thoughts on whether or not he thinks that this now crosses into the realm of a malicious prosecution, one where there may be accountability at the end of this, and Alvin Bragg may find himself in some legal hot water.
Yeah, that was how he started those comments. I tweeted them out earlier, and he said Alvin Bragg should be charged. And I think there's a lot of people that believe that to be true. So we'll see how that unfolds. Folks, we're on with Professor Nick Giordano, Professor of Political Science at Suffolk Community College in Long Island, New York. And, of course, he's the host of the PAS Report podcast. Check that out. Excellent podcast. And he's the higher ed fellow at Campus Reform. Straight ahead, we're going to talk a little bit about some campus reform stuff. We're also going to get Professor Nick Giordano's take on what's going on with Biden's latest shenanigans around electric cars, the Green New Deal, and the rest of his silliness. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
American companies are investing tens of billions of dollars in electric vehicles and batteries. And thanks to my bipartisan infrastructure law, we're building a network of 500,000 charging stations all across America, creating thousands of IBEW jobs across America. Electric charging stations. The reason to do this is simple. Electric charging stations have to be as easy to find as a gas station, and that's what this will be. You're not going to have to worry about it taking off, and you're not going to be able to make it all across the country and without having to figure something else out.
Of course, that is Joe Barboso Biden announcing today, amongst other things, that he's thinking of putting a tariff on electric vehicles made in China because he doesn't want China to control the market, and that his administration is going to oversee the creation of charging stations. However, there's a report out. I'm looking at the article right now, PJ Media, and this is indicating to me that it's been a huge fail. $7.5 billion in the infrastructure bill were put towards electric vehicle charging stations. And guess what? It only produced 7 stations as of yet. Now, this has been quite a while. This same report from, I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due, Stephen Green from PJ Media, he indicated that when he reported on this back in December, not a single station had been done. Now, these are expected to be completed by 2030, it's a few years away, 5.5, 6 years away. And they've built, I think, 6, right? So we're not really doing really well with this. Nick Giordano, what say you?
Are you telling me that shovel-ready jobs aren't really shovel-ready? I mean, we're doing this again, right? It's a repeat of 2009. But the whole idea is ludicrous in the first place because you want to expand the electric vehicle capability, yet you're not going to expand our electrical grid system that operates on gas and coal. And our grid system can't handle the technology. But at the same time, this administration claiming that it wants all this green energy technology, people may not know this, but about a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago now, there was an American company that did revolutionary battery technology. And the Biden administration in 2021 did a license transfer to a Chinese company accidentally. The Department of Energy did it. So now China's producing those batteries. So it's completely incompetent, this administration. But when we actually look at the energy and China, well, the American people already spoke. They don't want these electric vehicles. They keep on trying to shove it down people's throats. But I think it was Ford lost billions of dollars with their electric vehicle department. They're now actually curtailing it. They're downsizing it. And you have other car manufacturers doing the same thing. So they're going all in on a technology that Americans have largely rejected. And the only one that benefits from it are people, the elite people that are buying very expensive electric vehicles and getting federal tax dollars to subsidize their purchases. That's all it's helping. So it doesn't make any sense. And I do recall Biden criticizing the former president when it came to the idea of tariffs on China. Now he wants to implement them because it suits a policy agenda. Clearly, they have to get together and come up with a clear energy plan that makes America stronger, not weaker. And I don't see that happening just yet.
Nick Giordano, Professor Nick Giordano from Suffolk County Community College. What's interesting here, and I think everything you're saying is 100% right, but the reporter points out here that with 500,000 stations, charging stations, which are supposed to be done in the next 6 years, and it's been already 2 years, and we've only achieved 6 or 7 of them. The likelihood of this happening, obviously, is zero, and that it would take another 50 years or so to actually get it done. What's worse here is that the price comes out to about $1 billion per station from what they've spent, at least thus far. And just imagine a grid that can't handle it, taxpayers footing the bill of $1 billion per charging station. To me, it seems like electric vehicles are the most expensive proposition we've ever seen. Now, I want to switch gears quickly to get a report from you, an update on what's going on with all of the campus craziness that we've been seeing. It seems like some of these protests that have been broken up by police have subsided. What's your take on what's going on across America?
Well, I think one of the craziest stories is one that we just put out at Campus Reform, and it deals with Syracuse University, how one of the protesters in the encampments was actually a convicted murderer who bludgeoned someone with a blunt force object to death.
Wow.
And for 7 days, that person remained on campus until finally Syracuse University threw him off and he ended up getting arrested. But it's so ironic because you have these protesters that will shout down people like Riley Gaines, part of the Leadership Institute. They'll shout down speakers like Heather McDonald, yet they'll let a guy that murdered someone hang out in their encampment, all because he agrees. But Riley Gaines is like Satan because she doesn't believe that men should be competing in women's sports. So it really speaks to how insane these people really are. And I think that while the college campus craziness has subsided a bit, and some colleges are starting to recognize the damage that diversity, equity, inclusion has done, like UNC, and we put out a report on that as well, where they're now diverting funds from the DEI departments. I think it really, this summer is going to be a hectic summer. I don't think we've seen anything yet. I think it's going to actually get worse. It's going to fan out from the college campuses as colleges close down for the summer. And you're going to start seeing more of the bridges, them disrupting bridges and airports and things that we've witnessed in the past. So, these colleges have to recognize that they're destroying themselves. And they either have to right the ship now, return back to the idea of pursuing truth and intellectual integrity, or they're going to fail. There's a reckoning that's happening right now in higher education. People have woken up to what's going on, and these colleges have really tough decisions to make in the next couple of months before the fall semester starts.
They're training Marxists right beneath our noses, and it doesn't look good for America. Professor Nick Giordano, I want you to take a minute and let everybody know how they could find your latest columns, other than you making appearances on Gutfeld on the Fox News channel like you did this evening. How can people find you and listen to the PAS report?
Well, everyone can read my columns over at campusreform.org. They can check out the PAS report at pasreport.com, or they can follow me online on most of the social media platforms at PAS Report.
Outstanding. Sir, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I appreciate you staying up late, even though you were probably up late to hang out with Gutfeld. I'll take it.
Anytime, and I'm going to see you at the barbershop anyway.
Yes, sir. All right, folks. Nick Giordano, I appreciate you, brother. And we're coming right back. We're going to continue our conversation this evening. We're going to touch on a little bit of what's going on with the IRS, who says they're ramping up audits and they're cracking down. And, you got those armed IRS agents, 88,000 of them. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. I'm Rick Valdez.
More news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, amigos. We continue our discussion, and the IRS says it's about to ramp up audits as it cracks down on tax cheats to seek and deliver more of the revenue that they want and they live on, that runs through their veins. It's the mother's milk of Washington, tax dollars. And the U.S. Treasury obviously adds that to the coffers, and that's how they distribute your wealth. And the commissioner of the IRS, Danny Warfel, was at a House Appropriations Committee recently explaining it. Listen to this.
The IRS anticipates increasing audits on the wealthiest taxpayers, largest corporations, large and complex partnerships by sizable percentages for tax year 26. For example, the IRS will nearly triple audit rates on large corporations with assets over $250 million in tax year 26, increase audit rates by nearly tenfold on large complex partnerships with assets over $10 million, and increase audit rates by more than 50% on wealthy individual taxpayers with total positive income over $10 million. That's where our focus will be. Again, I want to be clear. Middle and low income taxpayers should know that there's no new wave of audits coming. We are laser focused on using new IRA dollars to increase scrutiny on those large and complex tax filers that are showing red flags for potential tax evasion.
So the IRS commissioner says that don't worry about it if you're a middle, moderate income. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're not coming after you. But we did change the rules to make sure that we could follow up on who's sending more than $600 on Zelle, right? So I don't know how that comes into play, but it doesn't seem like they're going to just focus this, like Obama said and like Biden says, and on the people making more than $400K and this and that. And are you the extremely wealthy? Then you got nothing to worry about. BS, Bravo, Sierra. I don't believe it a bit, but maybe Bruce Willey, CPA and tax attorney, can shed more light on this and tell me if I'm right or wrong. Bruce Willey, welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you doing this evening?
Wonderful, wonderful. Eager to hear about your thoughts on what IRS Commissioner Warfield said and whether you think that they're going to stop at the largest corporations and whatnot, or how this is going to roll out for the rest of America.
Well, the interesting part of his statement to me was the fact he said by 2026. So they got the funding a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago at this point.
Right.
And there was a study in April of last year that said that 63% of the new audits were hitting people making $200,000 or less. And now they're saying that they still need another 2 to 3 years to supposedly do this laser focus on large partnerships and large corporations, and you know, it sounds great in the press clip, but you know, these are the guys that are going to fight back. Right. These are the guys that have tax attorneys on staff. They have millions of people running around making sure their records are pristine and they're doing everything the way they say. So then, you know, I think it's probably lacks a little candor. You know, and I don't candidly believe it. I think that they're going to audit everybody because their appetite for revenue is insatiable, and they think that your money is theirs.
Yeah. And you know, Bruce Willey, I think you're spot on with this, because we've also seen how inflation is a direct result of the government's spending, and the Biden administration seems to be addicted to spending. They've spent an incredible amount of money. We've seen inflation that's trying to be managed. And while it's coming down, I think, in my opinion, isn't coming down fast enough. And irrespective of what they say about how inflation's coming down, I don't know anybody that's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm paying a lot less now that inflation's coming down. Nobody's paying less for anything. So I think, you know, people are concerned about that, and rightfully so. They should be extra concerned when they hear that the IRS is going to start coming after people. And when we have CPA tax attorneys like you, Bruce Willey, coming on the show telling us 63% of new audits are focused on people making less than $200,000 a year, this is pretty scary stuff. So tell us what you've been doing to navigate this with some of your clients. What's this look like on a practical level?
Well, the best thing that anybody can do is go into this with the attitude, if you do get audited, that you're going to win. And to do that, you have to keep records. Yeah. You can't just wad it up and throw it in a garbage can and think, okay, I'll be safe and I can argue my way out of this or talk my way out of this. The way to beat the IRS is to do legal strategies and to document them. And so if you have a small business and you're reporting it on a Schedule E, if you have rental properties, Schedule C, if you have rental properties on Schedule E. I mean, if you have these things, you have to keep records. You have to show that you made a mortgage payment. You have to show that you paid property taxes. You have to show that you paid utilities for that address. And just just think about it logically. Is, okay, if somebody were to challenge this, how do I prove that I spent this money on this business endeavor? And go into it with the attitude you're going to win. And if you have the records, you can win. And, it's not that hard to do. The IRS wins most of the time because people throw up their hands and essentially give in because they don't have any records and they just want the process to be over. So they take whatever settlement offer is being floated at the time. And, that's not the way to win. That just encourages more of the nasty letters and more of the behavior of agents to try to intimidate you into some sort of a settlement that enriches the IRS.
And as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRS got $80 billion in new funding, which went to hiring, I think, something like 88,000 new agents, some of them armed. So when you talk about agents that want to intimidate, now they're coming with guns. And I think that's a horrible idea. Last year when they started training them, came out that they shot each other and one of them killed another one. It was just an absolute disaster. And Bruce Willey, I think that a lot of the folks listening to this program are small business owners and are people that can be broken by the IRS. They're not independently wealthy. Like you said before, there are people out there, the big corporations, they can handle this, right? They can either retain a tax attorney or they already have them on staff and they can fight this fight. But when we come back, I want you to kind of walk us through what it's like for the small business owner. What records do they keep? What do you recommend? How long do they keep them? And really give us a strategy for folks that might be facing an audit. Folks, we're on with Bruce Willey, a CPA and a tax attorney, and we're discussing the IRS's recent announcement that they're coming for your money, right? Ramping up and doing a crackdown on tax cheats, so they say, and ramping up more and more audits. So don't go anywhere, folks. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back with Bruce Willey.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Inflation Reduction Act funding has enabled us to begin making critical inroads in addressing tax evasion amongst the most complex and largest filers. This is a sharp turnaround from the past decade when we were hindered by a lack of resources. Our compliance work includes focusing on tax delinquency and non-filing among high-income individuals and tax evasion among the largest and most complex partnerships and corporations. As I have previously noted, we remain committed to following the Treasury's directive not to increase audit rates relative to historic levels for small businesses and households earning less than $400,000 per year. Historic levels will be defined by tax year 2018, where rates for all cohorts were at historic lows. Notably, audit rates for various groups are made public each year in our data book.
Now, he says, and again, he being Danny Werfel, IRS commissioner, he says that they're not coming after individual small businesses and, limited liability partnerships or whatever phraseology he used, that they're really going after the big fish. But the reality is, in real life, they're looking for money. And if they're looking for money, they're coming after you. Our guest is a CPA and tax attorney, Bruce Willey, and he says, keep records. Bruce Willey, let's pick up right there on that point you made to us. What type of records for folks that are small business operators, independent contractors that are working with large companies, making their living that way? What records do they keep? What's the best way to approach that?
Well, the core of their business is what does it cost them to carry out their business? So those items need to be documented as you pay them. So if you set up ACH or other things, make sure you're keeping your bank statements. And if you use a credit card, this is key. I've talked to so many people. I've been doing tax work since 1985, and everybody assumes if they keep their credit card statements that will work as a receipt. In the IRS eyes, it's not a receipt. They won't accept it. They need the receipt that you got to begin with. So take a picture. So don't keep the paper. Take a picture of it. And there's apps that you can get these days that'll sort it for you, send you a PDF at the end of the year, and then you've got the records in a nice, organized fashion. But just be smart about what you're doing, right? So keep records of the stuff you're spending money on associated with your business, and then keep good records of the income coming in, because the first thing they're going to do to a small business is they're going to demand that you turn over your bank statements, and they're going to go through your bank statements and see if the deposits in your bank statements tie out to the income you reported on your return. And if they don't, you better be able to explain why. Did you get a loan? And you put a loan in your bank account. You don't have to pay tax on a loan, right? So, just be kind of smart about what you're doing, and just remember that they will not accept a credit card statement. And if you keep the actual records, you got a better shot of winning this thing and getting out of it with a zero change audit.
How long should people be keeping these records?
They should be keeping the records they have to commence an audit of a tax return within 3 years of filing. Okay, so right now we're in 24, so that means the 2020 returns would have been filed in 2021. So they have until the filing date, in 2024 to audit a return 3 years back. So keep those records a minimum of 3 years. We actually suggest to our clients that they keep it 6 to 7 years, because they can come after you for an intentional act or a fraudulent act for a longer period of time. And with technology and storage capacity and everything is the way these days, you might as well just keep those records, because you're hopefully not keeping paper anymore. And just letting the technologies, back it, keep it for you and back it up. But we suggest 6 to 7 years just to be safe.
Now, Bruce Willey, for those that are listening that are small business owners, independent contractors and whatnot, that are, there's a significant amount of expense that goes into them actually operating their business. I know in the last couple of years, there have been some significant changes on business lunches and the amount of lunches that you could claim, as well as the vehicle that you use to conduct your business. Give us a little bit of those parameters if you can.
Sure. So the meals and travel, so I'm going to lump them together, okay? So meals and travel have what's called a heightened documentation requirement by the IRS in order for them to be valid, okay? So right now, any meal you have that's business-oriented is limited to 50%. So they take away 50% of the deduction right off the top, whether it was the most important business meal you ever had or just a minor meeting, that you had with somebody. They don't care. It's right. It's limited to 50%. But they have what's called a heightened documentation request. And so for travel, if you need to travel someplace for meetings, keep an agenda of what you did when you traveled. You can be going to a convention. You could be going to a show. There's nothing wrong with taking some pictures of the brochures and everything that you got while you were there. Show that you were there, and you have to be able to tell the IRS how it benefited your business for you to be there. And like with meals, you have to say who was at the meal with you and how, again, it benefited your business in order to support that deduction. Now, one of the frequent things we get are people that go on business trips and then they add a couple days of personal travel in, right? So let's say you go for 4 days of business and 2 days of personal. How do you do that? Well, I'm in the Midwest, so we've got a saying, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right? Yeah. So don't be don't be greedy. Just take the trip and just divide it into 4/6. Then deduct your airfare and your hotels and your meal, that stuff for the days you're doing business. And the other 2 days, don't get greedy. Don't try to deduct them, because that's where you're going to get caught. Right. The IRS will catch you on that stuff, and you don't have an agenda to cover those items necessarily. And so you need to be smart about it. And, small business owners, I have the utmost respect for them. I'm one myself. I've got, 15 employees that work for me, and we try to do really good work, and we try to do things the right way. And there's a lot of pressure and a lot of burdens on small business owners. And I'm not trying to add to this. I'm just saying, if you do it at the time and make a record of it and keep it in a system that you can find it later, you're going to be miles ahead when that audit comes. And that's the other mindset shift we've asked our clients to go through, is let's just assume we're going to get audited. It's not a matter of if we're going to get audited, it's a matter of when. So let's prepare on that basis.
Folks, we're on with Bruce Willey, CPA and tax attorney. And when we come back, we're going to get his insight on what are some of the most commonly, I should say, overlooked expenses that people don't even realize they're making. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we continue our discussion on the IRS ramping up their audits. Our guest, Bruce Willey, CPA and tax attorney. Bruce Willey, let all of our listeners know, what are some of the, the most commonly left on the table expenses that you see for small business owners and the like?
There's a lot of expenses that are kind of personal, kind of business, that if you document your business usage and how it's used in your business, that, there's a very good compelling argument to make that they can be deducted. So for instance, if you do your accounting and your advertising and marketing from home, then maybe your home internet can be deductible. And we all know that the price of that hasn't gone down in any recent years, right?
Right.
So we see things like that. We see apps on your phone, and the cell phone contracts sometimes get overlooked and people forget about it, even though it can be your primary means of communication during the day while you're working, or during the night while you're working, depending on what your occupation is. Yeah. And so, really think about the things that you're doing. It's not as complicated as people think. You just have to be able to articulate, hey, this is how I use this in the business. This is how it helps the business.
Well, easily said by the CPA and tax attorney, right? Bruce Willey, let everybody know your website and how they can find you.
Sure. It's AmericanTBP.com. And there's a lot of white papers and a lot of informative articles on there if you care to read them. And, if you want to get in touch with us, there's a way to get in touch with us through the website as well.
You got it. Check out the website. Bruce, you're a patriot. Thank you, sir. Folks, we're coming right back. Open Phone America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of our Tuesday night program. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call. Here's the number, 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. And I'm keeping you company straight till 1 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to be taking your calls on everything we've discussed tonight, and we've had a lot of discussion this evening. We've talked about, let's see, where did we start? We started with a conversation on what is going on with Hamas, right, in Gaza, and the rest of that. We also had some conversation regarding the Trump trial and why the higher education establishment is failing us and creating Marxists that hate America. Then we also had some conversation on the IRS ramping up their desire for cash, and that means they're coming after you in the form of an audit. And, of course, there's so much more that we're going to talk about tonight. I want to give an update on this rape that had me dumbfounded the other day because I watched it, and honestly, I'm going to use the word traumatized. I was really traumatized by watching that video of that woman being, lassoed around her neck by this man with his belt. Well, there was an update that came out about that yesterday. I think it was yesterday night. I don't think I had a chance to share it with you. I'm not sure if you've heard it yet, but that man was caught. And the story of how he was caught is really an interesting one. We've got a report from Kara McKinney from Tipping Point on OAN. Listen to this.
The mother of the man allegedly seen in this video using a belt as a lasso to strangle his female victim before dragging her unconscious body between some cars to rape her, taking credit for his arrest. Beverly Parks, the mother of the suspect, 39-year-old Kashawn Parks, said that she was alerted to the crime by her daughter-in-law. Yeah, if you can believe it, the masked man in this video committing such a barbaric act of evil is allegedly a married father of 2, with his youngest being just 1 year old. Beverly Parks says she begged and pleaded with her son for an entire night to do the right thing after learning about it from his wife, and that ultimately she says she was able to persuade him to turn himself into authorities. Kashawn Parks now faces a slew of charges, including first-degree rape, strangulation, and sex abuse, among other charges in connection with the May 1st attack. His mother claims that he has been drinking heavily and using drugs to cope with the recent passing of his father out in Belize, but that such excuses do not justify his actions.
That's amazing. God bless this woman and his wife. This guy, married man, father of 2, was out there being an expert rapist and was turned in by his wife. His wife went to his mother, and between the two of them, got this guy to turn himself in. God bless these women and their courage for standing up to this guy and for doing what's right. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would say, you don't do it again. We're going to forget this happened. We're going to sweep this under the rug. But nope, this guy's mom did the right thing. And again, God bless her. Kudos to her and to his wife for saying, oh, my God, that's my husband, when she saw this on the news. Because honestly, this man needs to be stopped. This man is a danger. Now, she says that this happened because his dad died and that he's been drinking and using drugs. I don't know what we're going to find out. I hope that's the case. I really hope the guy just had a breaking point and this is the only time it's happened, because one time is one time too many. But from the expert lassoing and how he did this so expertly, it just leads me to believe that this man has done this plenty of times. And who knows, this may have been his secret life all along, where he'd been doing this forever. I don't know if you guys remember that TV show Dexter, where the guy is, and he works for the police department as a blood splatter expert, and he's at every crime scene. Meanwhile, at night, he's out there and he's a vigilante, And he's a serial killer vigilante, right? He kills all the bad guys, chops them up, throws them in the water. I mean, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal, I think 8 or 9 seasons of Dexter. I was hooked on that one. And let me tell you, it was really interesting if you're into that type of thing. But this could be the case for this guy, right? Maybe this guy, Keshawn Parks, maybe he's been out there raping women despite being married, despite being a dad of 2, just having this alter ego. I don't know. And I'm not suggesting that he does or doesn't. I'm just saying it's a possibility. And I'm hopeful that the police investigation reveals a lot more of what happened here. I'm grateful the guy's off the street. And more than anything, I'm grateful that his wife and his mother did the right thing. Because, honestly, this man had to be stopped. So I just wanted to give an update on that and get your thoughts on it as well. Plus, we have some audio from Governor DeSantis, who is fully prepared to take very, very extreme measures when it comes to punishing those that rape, in particular, children. And we're going to do that straight ahead. I'll let you hear that in the next segment. Plus, I want to talk a little bit about woke kindergarten. San Francisco is off the hook, and you're going to get to listen to that in a little bit. I want you to hear something. And I got a few other things up my sleeve, but I want to get your reaction to this rape situation, because it really is one of those things that I feel is just, it's either out of control or we're seeing so much more of it than we'd ever seen before. And that to me is concerning, right? It's concerning that this may have been something that always existed, and in many of our minds, at least in mine, I felt like it was not happening a lot, and that's why we didn't hear about it a lot. I would hate to think that it's been happening a lot and we just didn't hear about it a lot because people didn't want to talk about it. Kind of like what we hear when there's sexual assault on college campuses. Sometimes to keep their stats low, they look the other way. That's not how life has to be, right? Life has to be fair. We have to be safe. We can't have a life where we look the other way on something so egregious like a sexual assault. So anyway, we're going to do that straight ahead. Your calls and more, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Today we're doing even more to uphold the law and to go after those who are trafficking these children. We're not going to allow this to stand in the state of Florida. And just think of what we've done. What is our stand on sexual exploitation of minors? We've authorized the death penalty for pedophiles, and that's something that is absolutely appropriate.
I love that. I love that Ron DeSantis is making the penalty higher and more severe for people that go after kids. I think all sexual assault should have increased criminality, right, and increased penalties, because this is brutal. Some of the stuff that we see, you know, to just imagine walking down the street and someone lassos your neck with a belt from behind you before you could even react. I mean, even if you were carrying and you pulled out your weapon and you started, I mean, this woman passed out in seconds. I mean, she might have had just a few seconds to squeeze off a couple of rounds, maybe hitting the guy, maybe not, because before her arms went limp and she was out. I mean, minus somebody tucking their chin and being prepared to be attacked from the rear, this is a difficult situation to be in. And all I could say is the deterrent of knowing you're going to lose your life, and that's the mandatory minimum, death. That might help. That might help a couple of these crazies to do this less and maybe to not do it at all. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but let's go to Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go right ahead.
Great show. I think you're absolutely right, and I think Ron DeSantis is right. Death is the only deterrent for people like that. And the reason I think we've seen so many of these attacks is these liberals have this idea that the justice system is inherently racist. So in order to remedy that, you should give criminals of a certain background either a reduced sentence or no bail. And so you basically put a certain group of people, in this case black people, criminals, into a protected category. And any time you put a certain type of criminal in a protected category, you should not be surprised when they take advantage of that and just go crazy because there is no deterrent. And I'm glad his mother and his wife were honest enough to come forward and to convince him to turn himself in. That's refreshing. Usually they always try to say, oh, it wasn't him, but they're actually being honorable. But, you know, my dad died. He spent his last year of his life in the hospital with cancer. We didn't go out and commit crime. He probably had a secret life that his mom and his wife didn't know about. I agree with you. It's a practice thing. That takedown method is practice. I think it'll come out that he's probably responsible for a lot of sexual assaults.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I hope you're not. Honestly, I really do hope that this was the first time he did it and they caught him. I'm just also not that naive. And I wasn't born last night. I might have been born at night, but definitely not last night. And I just don't buy it. The guy looks like a professional criminal. The way he covered his face, the way he looked over his shoulder. I mean, some might argue, but he was fully on camera at the time. Yep, he was. And that led to his capture, and that's fantastic. But I agree with you, Sarah, that we have to have stiffer penalties. And it becomes problematic, I think, when you have Democrats that argue against these types of things. I recently saw a clip from the Colorado House of Representatives and the Colorado State House, where they're talking about how the Republican caucus put forward a bill to stop the sale of children, like as sex slaves, like, you know, illegally buying children on the street. And the reason they put forward this bill was because they felt that when they caught people that were buying children, stolen children, right, trafficked children, that they were getting minimal penalties and they were able to get out of it without even 4 years in prison. And let me know if we have that audio. And ultimately, what they decided, what they took their vote, and the Democrats voted on party line and defeated the measure when the Republicans were trying to get a 4-year mandatory minimum on anybody that was caught buying a child, a minor. And it's just crazy to me, and I'm not trying to politicize crime per se. I might be doing that a little bit, but I'm really making the case that there is a contingent of people, irrespective of their party, that defend criminality, right? There's a contingent of people that are out there on the university level that a couple of summers ago, I did a whole show on this, and I repeated it a few times because it was so crazy to me, that want to refer to pedophiles as minor attracted persons because there's an effort to normalize the criminality, to normalize the insanity of what they do. What do you think about that, Sarah?
Well, I think it's insane, but you know what? It is political, and it's not because you have a political bias. You are just reflecting the reality. I grew up around liberals, and liberals always empathize with criminals. They always have, and their whole policies and philosophies have always been empathetic to the criminal, and that the criminal is someone who's misunderstood or a victim of his or her own circumstances, and that is an underlying philosophy. So it is political, and that's why they vote along party lines, because that is their philosophy towards criminals, and that's why under their regimes criminals always get a free pass and prey upon innocent people. And it's despicable, but it is their politicization because it is their underlying philosophy that is soft on crime and empathetic to the criminal and not to the victim. So agree with you 100%.
Thanks, Sarah. Really well put, by the way. I think I agree with you as well. Folks, Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW, thank you for the call. Let's go to Frank, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Frank, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
A few decades ago, it was pointed out that there were more men raped in the United States per year than there were women raped per year. And the reason for that was that there were homosexual rapes taking place in the jails. Now, Luis Romano, I think, won a Pulitzer Prize for exposing that. I haven't heard anything about the homosexual rapes in the jails since then. How about your callers? Do they know anything about it?
I don't know, but I know looking at some statistics from 2021, which is the most recent ones I could find, the number of women raped was around 282,000 some odd versus 42,000 for men. Now, I think what you're saying probably makes a lot of sense. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. I was using the example of people looking the other way on college campuses. However, I think that there's probably a lot of people, way more, in fact, looking the other way in prisons and county jails and situations like that for the same reasons, right? I think a lot of people are embarrassed about that. But I think you're right. It goes underreported and, it's a controlled environment because, it's a captive audience, not to be punny in any way. And I think you raise an interesting point. Another interesting point is how there may be some rapes that go unreported because of prosecutors, right? Prosecutors have been a lot more lenient in the prosecution of certain crimes. And that's not just sexual assault, but in, I think, crime overall. So I think when you hear Mayor Eric Adams say things like in New York, like crime is down, you've got to be insane to think crime is down in New York City. But unfortunately, if nobody's reporting it, it didn't happen. Frank in Cumberland, Maryland, thank you for the call, WCBC. Quickly, let's go to Ambridge, Pennsylvania, check in with Bruce, who's on KDKA. Go right ahead quickly.
Hey, Rich, I just pulled up the numbers from 92 to 2012. The rates nationalized was at 92, 40 per 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. At 2012, it went down to 25 per 100,000 people. So it almost dropped in half. And then from 2012 to the last, go back 6 years, 2000 and I can't remember, maybe in the last 6 years, it spiked back up to 40 per 100,000. So over the last 6 years, it's been averaging about 40 per 100,000 people. So for a while there, for 20 years, it is actually dropping. And then all of a sudden now it went back up to its original, which it was back in 92.
Interesting, right? And again, I don't know if the answer is that we have more rapes actually occurring, or if we're just charging people less with these pro-crime progressive prosecutors that like to coddle criminals, saying, oh, this was forcible touching, not an actual full-blown rape, so that they don't end up on Megan's list. And I'm sure we've seen that more often than we need to. Bruce on KDKA, thanks for the call. Folks, it's Rich Valdez coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
There are probably up to 1,000 folks here in Daley Plaza. This is an annual event put on by the Jewish United Fund. It celebrates the 76th anniversary this year of the founding of the State of Israel. Obviously takes on a very different tenor this year with the war in Gaza and the protests that have bubbled up on college campuses in Chicago and across the country.
That is a report from Fox 32 in Chicago. We had crowds that were rallied in downtown Chicago to celebrate the 76th anniversary of the founding of the State of Israel. And of course, that doesn't go unnoticed by the haters, right? There's plenty of Israel haters out there. And earlier, we had Brigitte Gabriel on in the first hour of the program, and we played some audio of Mossab Hassan Youssef. He is the son of Hamas's co-founder. Now, he was on with Dr. Phil recently, and we played the audio, and it was amazing audio. If you missed that interview, I definitely recommend you check it out because it was eye-opening. And we have some additional audio of a speech he gave around Thanksgiving at the UN. And some of the things he said were just so eye-opening, and it really helps to understand where we are today and how we've gotten there. I want you to listen to Mossab Hassan Youssef. He is, again, the son of the founder, one of the co-founders of Hamas, speaking at the UN in November of last year. And he says the first crime that Hamas commits is a crime against children.
Hamas' first crime against children in the Palestinian societies is not arming them or encouraging them to carry suicide bombing attacks. It's the religious, ideological indoctrination that I had to go through, with one intention in mind: to annihilate the state of Israel. This is Hamas' primary goal. In this truth, there is no confusion. I speak as first-hand witness on Hamas and their intention. My father is one of the founders of Hamas movement. I was there when Hamas was born. I was before Hamas was born. And as I said before, I will be there after Hamas is dead.
This is the first crime that he mentions. He says it's their top crime. Principal crime is the indoctrination of children. Now, this is his experience. His father helped to create Hamas, and he grew up around this. Fast forward now to the United States, where we now have people preaching Hamas, teaching this hatred of Israel, hatred of the United States, right in the United States. But they're not doing it just at college campuses. They've decided to take it a step further. They've created something called woke kindergarten. And in San Francisco, one of the founder of woke kindergarten is out there giving it all she's got. Her name is Akia or Kai or Key Gross. And Miss Gross was on TikTok. And listen carefully to what she says. She makes no mistakes in what she means.
I believe Israel has no right to exist. I believe the United States has no right to exist. I believe every settler colony who has committed genocide against native peoples, against indigenous people, has no right to exist. I believe in a free Palestine, from the river to the sea. I believe one day Palestine will be free. Is this news to anybody? White supremacy destroys for the sake of destruction. Abolition destroys for the sake of creation. We are not the same. I have an unwavering respect for children, an unwavering love and care and compassion for children, a commitment to children and to their freedom, to their learning, to their lives, to sustaining their lives. Y'all are the demons. Y'all are the villains. We've been trying to end y'all, get free of y'all.
There you have it. Again, that is Akia Gross. I don't know if she goes by Key or by Kai, but that is her nickname, K-I. And she is a teacher. She is, listen to her about. Akia Gross, they, them, is an abolitionist early educator, cultural organizer and creator, currently innovating ways to resist, heal, liberate, and create with their pedagogy, woke kindergarten. This woman is an educator, an indoctrinator, in my opinion. She's not trying to teach your children how to read and to write in kindergarten, how to understand some basic universal truths like we don't steal, we don't kill, 10 Commandments type stuff, which I think are universal truths outside of religion that most little kids learn and are reinforced in early education, or at least once were. No, she's teaching that the America we know and love doesn't have a right to exist, that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. Dumbfounded. I'm really dumbfounded that this woman is getting attention, that people let their kids anywhere near her. Because while she says that, her movement is one that is, whatever it was, positive or proactive, I think this is ultimately extraordinarily destructive. But I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to Ralph, Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Ralph, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Captain Valdez, basically my premise is don't let a crisis go to waste. In other words, CRT, you got the Zoom calls during pandemic. It exposed the teachers or the unions, and BLM and the cops, degenerating the police forces. Now people really like their, protection. And same thing with the college campuses. No one knew how much, instigation there was in the college campuses until it gets exposed. Same thing with the southern border. We didn't realize until Lake and Riley and whoever else how expansive the damage is. So people just got to wake up, and it takes a crisis apparently to wrap everybody's heads around to common sense, man.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you on this one. I agree that I think people are really some people are getting caught, with their pants down. They're just like, wow, I can't believe that this is as bad as it was. Other people are saying, I've been telling you all along. And what's so interesting to me is that we are where we are, and that people are just so hell-bent on hating our country. And yet there are people that would want us to promote more of that. And again, I'm all about free speech. If you want to hate America, go right ahead. I don't like it, but I support your right to hate America the same way hopefully you support my right to love America, because we can disagree and still love free speech. But Ralph, I'm with you. The situation is bad. It's not only on college campuses, but it's, like I said, leaked into woke kindergarten. And that's some crazy stuff. Ralph, thanks for the call. Let's go quickly before we run out of time to John, Salem. I don't know what Salem that is. What state are you in, John?
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay,
Ohio.
Welcome to the program. How are you listening to the show?
I don't know. I just picked up somewhere around 10 on the dial. I don't really know for sure.
Wonderful. And what are your thoughts tonight? What do you want to say?
I think we're getting a totally monolithic, autocratic, one-note propaganda line concerning everything really going on. I think the American people are being brainwashed by a media that is owned by very big war profiteer billionaires that interlock with the very powerful Israeli lobby. And I think that alone has to explain why we're getting only one side to this, and really a false side, because...
Well, let me ask you a question, because I think you've made your point. If you turn on CNN, which is part of the, I think, the corporate media that you're talking about, or MSNBC, or, I don't know, ABC News, or even Joe Biden, do you hear any of them spewing pro-Israel propaganda, or does it sound like they're in the tank for Iran and supporting Hamas?
exactly the opposite.
Well, give me some examples of where you've heard CNN or anybody from CNN actually speaking pro-Israel in a Zionist manner. Some concrete examples.
All the time they parrot everything that the IDF, the Israeli army, tells them. The Mossad.
Can you give me some examples? Because I play them on the radio all the time, and they seem to have taken the idea that the Israelis are the aggressors, that women and children are being killed en masse, that the IDF are a bunch of brutal thugs that are brutalizing these innocent people. And then there's me that's out there saying I think that Hamas are the brutal people that are the ones that have created this attack, the biggest attack since the Holocaust, and that the Israelis are merely defending themselves to destroy Hamas.
Well, I think that if you listen to them, they're peddling exactly the kinds of lies that the CIA and Mossad are very professionally skilled at and have very many tentacles throughout our entire media. If you just look at the internal fight at New York Times recently among some of the lower-ranking journalists, on-the-scene journalists, they're rebelling against the editors and peddling this grotesque, tawdry propaganda about babies being beheaded.
But how do we know that's propaganda? I mean, I've seen the burnt carcass of these infants. And I mean, perhaps that this is all false if you want me to not believe my lying eyes. But I think that's never been a really effective strategy, John, of getting people to say, well, I've seen this and it didn't happen. You know, I've interviewed a number of people that were there when it happened. One family that escaped this craziness the same night that they were getting the rocket fire as it was going down. We had them on this program. And I can't believe that every single person that I've spoken to is a liar just because John, who doesn't even know what radio station he's listening to in Salem, Ohio, saying that the Israeli war machine is at it again with the CIA and the Mossad, when you've got so many countless members of the left within the media siding with Hamas. It just doesn't make sense to me. John, I have to pause here, but when we come back, I'm going to share some statistics about the United Nations now admitting that the Gaza death toll that they've been saying is all women and children, 30,000. It's time to stop. It's actually almost 50% fewer women and children than they'd been previously reported because Hamas has been out there propagandizing the media. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
Do you consider the phrase "from the river to the sea" hate speech and or advocating for the eradication of the state of Israel?
Congressman Bowman, let's get your take.
I know some do, others don't. I do not.
That is Congressman Jamal Bowman from New York City. And again, the idea of from the river to the sea is a call to eradicate Israel so that Palestine can occupy all of Israel. And many consider that hate speech because it's tacitly calling for the destruction, the end of Israel, which is what Hamas calls for. And I believe we consider them terrorists. And Bowman does not. Again, another pro-Hamas member of the United States Congress, Jamal Bowman. And just like we have teachers that are against Israel and are against the United States, we have members of Congress that are very much the same way. Why? Because they learned this in college. And now we've seen from this teacher that we just heard from they're also doing it in elementary education. Let's go to Kalispell, Montana, KOFI. Lance, go right ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes.
I just want to speak to the ideology of colonization and settlement. I'm Native American, Native Montanan. I don't live on a reservation, never taken a dime of settlement money. So for these people that claim all of this colonization and outcry that they have, where are their family lineages from? Aren't they propagating the very thing that they rail against? And if so, wouldn't they be doing us all a favor to just relocate? And specifically to this, and I'm going to use the term loosely, educator, Kai, or Key, or however it chooses to go by. I believe the scripture is very specific when it says, "Woe unto thee that should cause any child to stumble, for it would be better that a millstone was tied around their neck."
Yeah.
See. So we all stand before a true or higher judge at the end of it all. So I would encourage them to maybe rethink where they stand on a lot of this, because God is very specific in his word as to where we stand with or without Israel.
Really well said. A much kinder and generous approach than I do typically take with these people. And what I can tell you is, and I agree with you 100%, this woke kindergarten system, at least as described on their website, is a global abolitionist early childhood ecosystem and visionary creative portal, supporting children, families, educators, and organizations in their commitment to abolitionist early education and pro-black and queer and trans liberation. Now, it's a mouthful. It's also a run-on sentence. And this is what they stand for and where it stems from. All of these things have their roots in enemies of the United States perverting our education system to poison the well, so to speak. Lance, I think your comments are spot on, and it's a shame that we're even at this point in American history, but you're right. They'd be doing us all a favor if they decided she should go to Palestine, this queer individual, and go to Gaza and see, how well they accept you there. I'd love to see how that plays out. Lance in Kalispell, Montana, thank you for the call. Shout out to KOFI. And do I take a break here or do I go straight through? Oh, we do. Shoot. Okay, I'm going to come back. We got calls from Florida, Chicago, Idaho on deck. Don't go anywhere. Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, we are standing by for your calls. Let's go to Walter, St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, go right ahead.
Buenas noches, Rich. I'll talk fast. Buenas noches. Why is pedophiles increasing, protests getting more violent and frequent, terror groups existing, gender obscuring, weaponizing justice system? It's all summed up in the Bible, book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 12. Woe to the earth, for the devil has come down to you, having great anger, knowing that he has a short period of time. And Rich, time is getting shorter. It's going to get crazier.
Walter, you don't sound like you're from St. Augustine, Florida. Where are you from originally?
New York City. I spoke to you before about between the Manhattan and Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, I know it. I could tell a brother from a mile away. Thanks, Walter. I appreciate it. Diane in Chicago, Paul in Boise. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you tonight. The clock ran out of time before I could get to you, but thank you for the call. Shout out to KBOI and WGN in Chicago. Hasta la próxima, folks. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Take care, good night, and God bless. I'm Rich Valdez.